In 2003, the so-called Halloween storm caused local electricity grid blackouts in Sweden, required the rerouting of flights to avoid communication blackout and radiation risk, and disrupted satellites and communication systems. But this storm was minor in comparison with other storms of the recent past, such as the 1859 Carrington superstorm, which caused auroras as far south as the Caribbean. In terms of life on Earth and the direct impact of reversal on our species, we cannot definitely predict what will happen, as modern humans did not exist at the time of the last full reversal. Several studies have tried to link past reversals with mass extinction, suggesting some reversals and episodes of extended volcanism could be driven by a common cause. We do know that many animal species have some form of magnetoreception that enables them to sense the Earth's magnetic field. They may use this to assist in long-distance navigation during migration. But it's unclear what impact a reversal might have on such species. The Earth's magnetic field is generated within the liquid core of our planet by the slow churning of molten iron. Like the atmosphere and oceans, the way in which it moves is governed by the laws of physics. But predicting how the Earth's core reacts is difficult because it is buried beneath 3,000 kilometers of rock, and therefore the observations are indirect. Orbiting satellites actually measure how the magnetic field is changing, while they then provide insight into how the liquid core is moving. The recent discovery of a jet stream within the core highlights our evolving ingenuity and increasing ability to measure and infer the dynamics of the core. So get yourself prepared for a geomagnetic superstorm that will happen as the ongoing reversal kicks into gear. Back in the spring of the year 2007, a dire warning was presented to the mainstream media and to the George W. Bush administration that the sun would be entering into a period of hibernation that would last for decades, resulting in an historic decline in energy output and a long-term decline in the Earth's temperatures. The warning was presented by Mr. John L. Casey, one of America's most successful climate change researchers and climate prediction experts, who is a leading advocate for a national and international plan to prepare for the coming climate change epoch. In November of 2014, the Space and Research Science Corporation announced an important set of climate change predictions for the next few decades. According to analysis of the most reliable solar activity trends and climate models based on a relational cycle theory for the coming years, what had been predicted is shown here. On October 7, 2017, after more than 10 years of informing the public about his dire predictions for the planet, John Casey was compelled to end his epic crusade due to complications of a debilitating stroke. As he indicated in a final goodbye to the public, which he had served, he wished everyone the best as we enter into a time of climate uncertainty associated with historic earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. As our sun now enters into a time of hibernation and inactivity, we must seriously examine whether the predictions that John Casey warned of more than a decade ago are actually coming to fruition by what we see developing across the world today. Let's take a look at some of the most recent happenings from across the world that may provide some credibility to John Casey's predictions of another decades-long cold climate epoch for the planet. A rare and heavy snowfall swept over Paris on February 7th, bringing local transit to a standstill and causing havoc across the region. Between 6 and 8 inches of snow fell over the capital city, while temperatures plunged to 14 degrees Fahrenheit, making this the heaviest snowfall event for Paris in the past 32 years. During the event, nearly 2,000 motorists were stranded on a highway southeast of Paris, forcing many of them to continue on foot, and the evacuations of at least 900 stranded people were conducted. The weather event had also forced Eiffel Tower to close its gates. Weather models are suggesting a very high probability of a rare North Pole weather phenomenon called sudden stratospheric warming, which is taking place later this month and bringing prolonged bitterly cold temperatures to the UK and parts of Europe. There is a clear indication of an imminent split in the polar vortex, currently located over central western Greenland. The polar vortex is expected to become well developed by mid-February. The process of vortex splitting is accompanied by sudden stratospheric warming, whereby temperatures in the stratosphere rise. This warming can then extend downward through the depth of the atmosphere and result in an increased risk of blocking, which in winter raises the chance of widespread cold conditions developing. A sudden stratospheric warming is an event in which the polar vortex of westerly winds in the winter hemisphere slows down or even reverses direction over the course of a few days. The change is accompanied by a rise of stratospheric temperatures. Immediately following the stratospheric warming, the high-altitude winds reverse to flow eastward instead of their usual westward flow. The eastward winds progress down through the atmosphere and weaken the jet stream, often giving easterly winds near the surface and resulting in dramatic reductions in temperatures in Europe. An exceptional cold wave swept across Morocco, North Africa, blanketing the country with extremely rare snow for the second time this winter and for the second time in the past 50 years. The latest event comes just 15 days after a huge snowfall had caused unprecedented road conditions across the country, shutting down 3,100 miles of highway. Some southern regions describe the conditions as those experienced during blizzards. Total accumulation of as much as 75 inches were reported across various regions of southern Morocco, and as much as 111 inches at higher elevation weather facilities. The government has launched what they described as an exceptional mobilization in response to the consequences of the cold wave and heavy snow, which has caused significant damage to the affected areas. One of the worst snowstorms in modern history swept across a large swath of Japan the first week of February. In northwestern Japan, record snowfall brought transit to a standstill and trapped people in 1,500 vehicles for more than 2 days. Here is a glimpse at the massive snowstorm that hit along the Sea of Japan coast on February the 7th. In Moscow, record-breaking snow and freezing rain wreaked havoc across the Russian capital. The snowstorm was so severe that meteorologists dubbed the storm as the Arctic invasion, describing the event as the snowfall of the century. Half of Moscow's monthly precipitation fell within a 24-hour period, causing the downing of 2,000 trees across the city. The event was the heaviest one-day snowfall in Moscow since records began. The unprecedented